سلام خانم سمی، عصرتون بخیر. خوبی شما؟ علیرضا هستم.
سلام، خوب هستین؟
ممنون، مرسی. خب من شما رو کوهوست میکنم که بتونید اسکرینشون رو شیر کنید.
اوکی، sounds good.
خواهش میکنم. الان کوهوستید، الان میتونید اسکرینتون رو شیر کنید.
اوکی، perfect. اینو من چیز کنم، بذارم فرمول.
اوکی. آره من الان اسکرین شما رو میبینم. اوکی، همیشه
اوکی.
صدا تصویرتون هم خوب، عالی.
sorry. خوب الان؟
آره همیشه عالیه.
اوکی، perfect.
میخواین چند دقیقه دیگه صبر کنیم که دوستان بیان بعد شروع کنیم.
Sure.
خب عصر همگی دوستان بخیر. من علیرضا هستم از پارسی کال سنتر، مرکز برابری پارس. مفتخرم که امشب دوباره در خدمت خانم مریم سمیعی هستیم در مورد how to build your resume and create a cover letter. حالا دوستان فکر میکنم آروم آروم به جمعون اضافه میشن. خانم سمیعی شروع کنیم تا بعد دوستانم که میان میتونن حضور داشته باشن. فقط یه چیز، دوستان سوالشون هر موقع داشته باشن میتونن مطرح کنن یا اینکه بذارن آخر کلاس، آخر یعنی وبینار.
شاید آخر بهتر باشه، یا اگر گروپ چت هست من میتونم سوالا رو نگاه کنم on the side. اگر بتونم همون موقع جواب بدم I can do that too, whatever you prefer.
اوکی. خب از دوستان اگه بخوام میتونید توی چت هم سوالاتون رو بنویسید. پس سوالا رو بزنین آخر جلسه رو انشاءالله تا ساعت 6 که شروع کردیم تا ساعت 7:30 داریم. ممنون. من مزاحم شما نمیشم. بفرمایید.
باشه، خیلی ممنون. Thank you very much for having me. I'm very happy to be here, Mr. Payman. Thank you so much for the invite. So why are we here today and what are we trying to get out of our session? I'm here to help you build your resume and to also help you create a cover letter. And I'm sure you already have those, but maybe I will provide you with some hints and tricks to help you enhance your resumes and your cover letters. So who am I? My name is Mariam Sami'i. I've been in recruitment for close to 25 years now. I worked for Shell Oil Company in Iran for many years. And then I worked for Shell in many parts of the world doing recruitment in the Middle East, in Holland, in England, in Scotland. And then I moved to Houston, but I've also worked in Canada and Brazil. And now I'm in Los Angeles and I'm working for University of Southern California. And I'm the director of talent acquisition. So as you can see, throughout my whole career, I have seen many, many resumes, good ones, not so good ones, and some in the middle. So I'll walk you through ways that you can reassess your resume to make sure that it gets the attention it deserves when hiring managers and recruiters are taking a look at your resume. I'll also talk to you about cover letters because that's also very important for you to create. And the creation of those cover letters should be different based on the job you apply for. We'll look at different types of resumes together and you can hopefully take some notes to see which type you have a preference for. I also have some hints and tips for you to prepare you for interviews. And of course, we'll have a chance to conduct a Q&A. If at any point there is a couple of you that would like to have a one-on-one session with me, Payman Khan, maybe up to 10 people if is required, I'm more than happy to have a half-an-hour session with your members. Of course, there's no charge for any of this. I'm here to help fellow Iranians get to where they deserve to get to in the workforce in the United States.
Thank you.
Of course. So basically, what do we mean by reassessing yourself? So as you take a blank sheet of paper and you want to either recreate your resume or you want to upgrade your resume, you really need to create
دوستان لطف کنید میکروفون میوت باشه. من ببخشید دوستان لطف کنید چک کنید حتما میکروفونتون میوت باشه. ممنون.
Great. What I'd like you to do is really take an inventory of yourself. And when you think about that inventory and that brand that you belong to, what have you done, right, in the professional world? What have you done up till now? Where have you been? What has been your accomplishments? Where are you now? And how do you make sure that your recent accomplishments and positions are written in your resume? And then also you need to think about where do you want to be in the future? And where do you want to go from here? And the reason why you need to know that answer is because that third question is then going to determine how you structure and write your resume. So where have you been in the past? Where are you now? And where do you want to go in the future? And in each of those buckets, if you start writing down on a notepad, maybe 7 or 8 items per each column that we're talking about, that will give you a very good inventory to put together and pull together your resume, because your resume is your biggest brand. That is your product that can basically get you to that next step, which is to get you closer to an interview with the recruiter, and then after the recruiter to get you closer to the hiring manager. So cover letter, why do we have to do cover letters, right? So cover letters are a very traditional thing when it comes to job applications. I know they're time consuming for you to create, but there are many recruiters out there who really take a look at cover letters, because cover letters, in one paragraph, you have to be very specific and very targeted in basically why you, right? So you have to catch the attention of that recruiter. So you have to use very good language, really good English, no spelling mistakes, review it over and over again. And make sure when you write your cover letter, you also talk about your own personal examples, your transferable skills, but how you feel you and your brand then connects into that of the employer. Because that is what is going to then allow your recruiter to take a look at your resume and then lead, as I said earlier, lead to an interview for you. So here's a sample of a cover letter, making sure you have the introduction, which is the information on the hiring company that you're applying to. You have your information on top. You can decide whether or not you want to include address information. Some people put addresses, some people do not. If you plan on not putting your address, then definitely your phone number, one phone number only, one email address only, and also one LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn profiles are very, very important. Recruiters are looking at LinkedIn every day for many, 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 many reasons. And make sure your LinkedIn profile is also updated. We have another session where we'll get deep into how to create a good LinkedIn profile. But for right now, make sure that you have your LinkedIn profile updated. So what should you put in your cover letter? So your cover letter should not be more than 1 page. And also your resume really should not be more than 1 page. So make sure you put information in there that catches your recruiter's eyes. What experiences do you have? And how do those experiences link in with the job you're applying for? And believe me, if there's jobs you're applying for and you really don't have the skills for it, don't waste your time. And also don't waste the time of the recruiters. Focus on roles that you have experience in, that you can put your foot forward. Put it this way, think about it as if you're the hiring manager and you're about to take a look at your resume coming through. Would that be a positive resume? And would that be a resume that actually would fit in with the role that you're applying for? Make it positive. Make sure you let them know you're interested and you'd welcome talking to them. And leave it at that. Again, nothing too big, nothing too small. A paragraph as to why you think your brand and your know-how and your experience will get you that role. And then your information, the company's information. And then after that, we will then take a look at what you think, what needs to be in your resume, right? So on the left-hand side with, resume, what it contains, it's very simple information. I know you already have this information like your name, your exact name, as it's also, because some people put their acronyms for their name. So put the name that is really in your documents. So when they check your documents and your identification against your resume name, it matches to your name, your contact information, your education, your work experience, any other types of developments or certificates that you have, and also hobbies. People like to know, what else do you do outside of work? The font is also really important. We recommend between 10 to 12 as far as the font size. As we mentioned, the LinkedIn URL is really important. Make sure it's a link. So if somebody wants to, they can click on that link and it'll take them to your LinkedIn profile. My recommendation is if you have up to really 15 to 20, really 15 for the minimum, 1 page is plenty. If you really need to go into two pages, go ahead, but The rule of the game here is that recruiters spend around 60 seconds. So in 1 minute, you need to make your resume so interesting and so exciting that the recruiter wants to continue reading and learning more about you and then picking up the phone, right? That's what it's all about. How do we make sure that the recruiter then picks up the phone and calls you? If they call you, please make sure to respond. If you're available, respond right away. If they leave you a message, respond immediately. If they email you, make sure to check your junk mail. There are many times that conversations end up in junk mail. A recruiter reaches out to you, it ends up in your junk mail. You look at your junk mail 3 days later, and by that time, the recruiter could have moved on with another candidate. Make sure you proofread, make sure it's consistent, and make sure it also has your personality in it as well. So there's two types of resumes here that you can either do a chronological resume, you can do a functional resume, and I'll show you both of them, or you can actually do a combination of both. So this is really your own preference. You might actually have one of each depending on where you're applying for, but they're just different formats. And then there's the joint up format as well. So on the left-hand side, the chronological one, you can see is where you would have kind of an objective of what you're trying to do, not more than a few lines, maybe a paragraph. You would list out your job experiences. You would put in your degree information and what interests you. A functional resume is also a really good one, in particular for people that have a lot of experience and we want to try to still get it into one page. Then a functional resume would be great, where you list out your areas of expertise. So like we talked earlier, when you create your inventory and you start thinking about yourself and all the things that you know how to do and all of your areas of expertise, what is it that you want the hiring manager to see? What is it that you want your recruiter to see? Because before the hiring manager, you need to make sure that you can get into the door of meeting the recruiter and that conversation goes well. And then that leads into a conversation with the hiring manager. Always think of these as conversations, just like what we're doing here right now with each other. It's a conversation. It's a two-way street. That way it reduces the stress. You know, if you start stressing about, oh, I have an interview and I'm worried, then you're not going to give it your best. Think of it as a conversation you're having with someone you don't know, but it's a conversation where you can brand yourself. You can talk about all the things that you know how to do in order to get to that door. So on the other side, as you see, here's a functional resume as a sample for you. And then there's the combination resume where you can also do this, where you have your profile, you have your skills, and then you also talk about your experiences and then your education. If you have a high GPA, grade point average, then I recommend you list it there as your GPA score. If you don't have a high GPA score, then the recommendation would be to perhaps leave it out and only, talk about it if they mention it or they want more information from you on it. So when writing your resume, again, things that I want you to really think about is create your resume in a space where you are very free. You have no distraction, no phone next to you, no responding to text, no going on Instagram and on LinkedIn or wherever else you might go. Be by yourself. Maybe it means if you want to get the best out of it, whatever makes it easy for you. Is it at a library? Is it maybe in a park, in fresh air, somewhere that you have complete focus at your office, in your own room? Only you focus on yourself. And in order to get you a good resume, it's going to take you a good couple of hours doing the inventory, writing down all the things you want to make sure you have there. Then thinking about what should I put in there that is going to trigger the hiring manager and the recruiter to consider me. And all of it, of course, needs to be truth and facts and factual of things that you really have done in the past and that you have experience in, and things that are linked to the job description that you know how to do. It could mean that you might have a few resumes after you make your main one, because what you can also do is link your resume to the job description. So you have the job description on one side, you have your resume on the other, and you can link those because there's things that are in the job description that you believe you know how to do. So make sure those things are then highlighted in the resume that you're sending for the job description that we are talking about. Use action words as much as you can so that they also understand what your role you had in the production of that activity that you want to talk about and mention. So why do we do this, right? So we have a cover letter, then we have our resume. Why do we do this? And where do we see ourselves? So as we mentioned, spend time on your resumes. We said even 15 seconds. I'm giving it a generous amount of time, and I'm saying 60 seconds is how much a recruiter will look at your resume. And as you can imagine, especially right now with what's happening with COVID and unemployment rates, there could be a position where a recruiter gets inundated with applications, sometimes 100, 150, or even 200 or 250 resumes come through on one position. So put yourself in the role of the recruiter when you're making your application. First of all, make sure that what you're applying for is something that you really know how to do so you can pass the interviews and make it. Second of all, make sure that you put things in there that are really linked to that job description. Also think about getting a recommendation. So do you know anybody at that company, for example, who could give you a referral? Because that always helps. Could you connect with some of the recruiters online? Maybe you know the company and then you can search on LinkedIn and find out who those recruiters are and you can send them a message on LinkedIn. But don't be too persistent. If they decide not to respond to you, then leave it at that. And if they respond, then great. You can have a conversation on LinkedIn. You can send your resume through. You can send your phone number through, and you can have a further conversation. Networking is also very important, similar to what we're doing here today. Continue in your networking efforts because you never know when someone might say they have a position and you might be the ideal candidate in that conversation. And that's when you raise your hand and say, you know what you're looking for, actually, I have, and I'd love to talk to you about it offline at another session. So arrange to talk to them, maybe not exactly fully in the networking session, but then afterwards reach out and arrange to have a conversation. There's many, many online groups that you might want to join on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on actually also Instagram. So decide to join groups that are relevant to your portfolio. And also read about the people that you want to interview with. So let's say you're having an interview with the CEO of a company. Well, you know the name of the company, you know the name of the CEO, you know the name of the recruiter. You need to make sure that you've done your research before you get to the interview, because at the end of the interview, they're going to ask you, do you have any questions? And I want to make sure that the questions you ask are questions that are relevant to the recipient. If you do some research on these people and realize, for example, that they have done a conference somewhere, or they've spoken somewhere, or they have an article somewhere, make sure to talk about that to them so that they realize that you've actually done the research. If it's a big company and you go out there and you can find out, how much they're worth and how much they made last year, talk about it at the end so that they know, again, that you've really done the research and that you really want to join the company, not just because you think you're the right fit, but also culturally that you're the right fit and you've done so much research to know what this company is all about. So that's super important. And then it comes to preparing for the interview. So now you've done your cover letter, you've done your resume, you've sent out many, many applications. And I want to say that I hope that you don't get discouraged by the number of applications that you sent. It could mean that you might have to send 40 or even 50 resumes and cover letters and applications. And you might only get back 5 interviews, and then that could lead up to 1 or 2 offers. It's going to take time. It's going to take effort. And I just don't want you to give up. I want you to continue trying until these interviews start coming in. I promise you, if you do the right preparation for the interviews, for your resume, for your cover letter, then there's a big chance that you're going to make it. But if you're going to upload the same resume 50 times and the same cover letter 50 times to 50 different organizations, it's not going to work. It's, the cookie cutter approach here is not going to work. I suggest that you actually create an Excel spreadsheet, and on that Excel spreadsheet, as you apply for the jobs, write down the date of the job application, the name of the job, and ideally copy and paste the job description into your Excel. The reason why I say that is that it's going to get out of hand. So once you start applying and applying and applying, then you're going to start getting calls from recruiters, and then you're going to forget which role you applied for. And you want to make sure that you're completely prepared. And what you don't want to do is tell the recruiter, oh, can you please send me the job description? So I want to make sure that you have that on your Excel spreadsheet. So all the preparation that you do in advance is going to prep you so well for the interview via Zoom or face-to-face, hopefully in the near future as well. So as I mentioned, make sure you get to know the organization, make sure you know the job description, make sure you really feel you are qualified for the organization. All organizations have incredible websites. Get to know their values, get to know who they are, get to know their culture so that you can weave that into your answers in the interview process. So these are common questions that, regardless of where you go for an interview, these are questions that are going to come up, right? Why this position and why now? Tell me about yourself. Where do you see yourself in a couple of years? What would you do? What would it take for you to do this job well? What are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? When it comes to strengths and weaknesses, people usually, and I've conducted probably really realistically, I've conducted over 1,000 interviews in my corporate life, or maybe even more. Usually when we ask the question, what are your development areas, or what areas do you feel that there's a challenge in you, people usually say, oh, no, I don't have any weakness and I don't have any development points. But that's not true. We all know that. We all have a lot of strengths, which is fabulous, but we also have weaknesses, and we just need to be very open about that and explain to them where we feel that there might be a gap maybe between the job description and us. And then other things like where you want to see yourself in a couple of years, for sure it's going to come up. So these questions that I've put up here for you are questions that, regardless of the position that you are prepping for, you should go ahead and have answers for these questions. You can write them down. You can start thinking about what you want to say. Another great idea would be for you to have a prep interview, right? So with maybe a family member or a current colleague or somebody that is very close to you and you trust, you could have a prep interview with them. You could send them the job description, you could send them the resume and say, look, I have an interview coming up. Here are actually some questions that you can ask me, and just have that conversation, get on Zoom, have that conversation and see how it goes. You can even record yourself and then listen to the recording to see where you felt you did well, or if there's areas that you think you need to improve on, right? And then at the end of the interview, there's definitely going to be probably 5 minutes where they're going to ask you if you have any questions. So make sure that you ask questions about them. What keeps them awake at night in this position? Do they see a fit between you and the position you're applying for? Do they think that you're a good fit? What are the day-to-day responsibilities? What are the company values? Make sure you relate to those company values yourself as well. So like I said, they know you've done the research and are prepared, and you know what the company is all about. And what is their favorite part about their company? Have they been there for a short term? Have they been there for a long time? You can find the answer to that question usually through LinkedIn. So if you do a LinkedIn search on your interview panel, you can see how long they've been in companies, and you can bring that up to say, I searched your profile, I looked you up on the internet, and this is what I was able to find. I see you've been in this company, X company, for a long time, and tell me, walk me through what kept you here, right? So that they know that you're super, super interested. And then the day of the interview and after the interview. So what is it going to take? If it's face-to-face or if it's on a Zoom call, what I recommend is that you would be dressed exactly as if it was face-to-face. So if for face-to-face, depending on the company, if you plan on wearing a suit and a tie, or a suit and a white shirt, or a dress if it's for a female, however way you would go face-to-face, do the exact same thing. If it's over Zoom, definitely number one. If it's face-to-face, make sure you take copies of your resumes, and take copies of your resumes on really good paper, stock paper. You can print them either at your printer at home, or you can go to Kinko's and print them on a printer at Kinko's, but have a couple of copies of your resumes and cover letters in case they need it. Make sure you write down the names of the interviewers, because what I would like you to do is also take notes as the interview goes on. And then also make sure that if you're going somewhere face-to-face, get there half an hour early. It doesn't mean you need to go upstairs and go to the office, but I need you to get there early so you don't have any type of stress before you get to that location. Check your technology like we did here earlier before we got on, and before you all got on, we made sure that the technology is working for us. Make sure your technology is working. Make sure you're in a very quiet space and a very focused space so that there's no distraction all around you at all, because we want you to give it 120% of your attention. And finally, what really works really well is that if you would follow it up with a thank you email. And usually the recommendation is that you would do it the next morning, the next day, maximum 2 days, because after that, it might be a little bit too late. So a thank you note, jotting down, if it's by email, how you enjoyed the conversation and how you're hoping to be part of the team and to take it forward. But also be honest with yourself. If you go to an interview and you actually realize, you know what, this is really not for me, well, then make sure you talk to your recruiter, and have a conversation with them, and maybe spend 15 minutes with them to explain to them why you actually feel this is not the right fit. Because that's also really important. We don't want you to do all this work and then get to the interview, get the job, get the offer, walk into the job, and then only realize a little bit later that that's really not what your competency area is, nor is it where you want to be. So be honest with yourself. And finally, like I mentioned, it could be that you have multiple resumes catered to the organization you're applying for, and that's fine. Maybe a couple, not 15 or 20, but maybe 3 or 4 or 5. Make sure you have a job log on an Excel spreadsheet or on Google Docs. Believe me, it will make your work so much more straightforward and so much more organized once you start getting calls for the interviews. Make sure you place your hobbies on your resumes. Hiring managers or recruiters sometimes ask about the hobbies. Maintain your positiveness, maintain your brand. You've come a far way. I am sure every one of you here on the call, I'm sure every one of you has a story and a positive story. And I'm sure that you have gone through a lot to get you where you are. So now it's really about the packaging of your branding and the packaging of that resume and the packaging of that cover letter that will then start getting you the interviews that you so well deserve. I know that every single one of you is a hard-working person. That's why you're here. And I'm sure that you have a lot to offer. So let's work together to package it for you in the right way, in an honest way, and in a way that really, really represents you and your brand. And hopefully through Payman, we will hear back from you and you will say that you've landed some great opportunities. Remember that when you land an opportunity, don't just think about how much it pays and if it maybe pays more or whatever that is, but really make sure that where you're applying for caters for your competency, because your value and your pay and all these things can always change once you're at an organization. Make sure that you get monetary wise what you of course deserve, but if for any reason it's a little bit less than what you think you are worth at this point in time, competition is incredible right now outside. There's many people who are looking for jobs. So if you get what you're looking for, go for it. And then within the organization, you can prove yourself and hopefully even get more accountability, more responsibility, which will then even give you more of what you deserve, both from a pay perspective, but more importantly, also from a position perspective. Payman Khan, with that, I'd like to hand it over to you.
Yes. So you want everybody to talk about their story, or just about their professions or resume or something like that?
Absolutely. So if you'd like to facilitate the Q&A, I'm more than happy to take any questions, any comments
Okay.
people might have. I'm here for you.
Okay. So, you know, everybody can open their microphones and just speak. Just we have about 1 hour, which is good. I think we can, we should answer all the questions, hopefully. So far, anyone has a question?
Hello. Thanks very much for all information, Mariam, you provided tonight. I have a question. How can we make targeted resume? Because the job positions that we had before, all the same. We can't really change that much. How can we prepare targeted resume for each opportunity that we are going to apply?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for the question. So my suggestion here would be for you to print the job advertisement. So print that and have it next to you, and then start looking at your resume and see if there's a match. And if there is a match, then make sure that you could even use the same wording that is in the job description. You can pull some of that out and incorporate it into your resume. But make sure that there really is the match. And once there is the match, do that, because there's times that also due to artificial intelligence, that some companies, if the volume is very high, then the first sifting of resumes is done by robots, right? So we want to make sure that you're also using the right terminology and the right wording that's in the resume. Pick those up, go into your own resume, do a save as, and if it's, let's say, for Bank of America, do a save as, our Make Bank of America resume, and start weaving in some of that, not the whole job description, of course, but some of those competency areas. You can weave them into your resume based on the experiences that you see you have for that job.
Right. Which part of our resume? I mean, in the highlights mainly?
Part of it in the highlights, part of it also in the description of the work that you've done. Both.
I see. I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, got you.
And also in the cover letter, for that matter.
Oh yeah, for sure. And cover letter should be like around 1 page, right?
Maximum 1 page, and 1 paragraph. Make it short, make it to the point, but make it interesting enough that the recruiter would like to then look at your resume, because that comes second when you apply.
Another question that I have, sometimes they are asking like 3 years experience, for example, okay? So we have like 10 plus 15 years experience, and we are interested to get that job because of that is a city job or governmental job. How can we, make interesting our resume to, that recruiter in the city or the government job, that, okay, we are the good position for that. Although we have kind of overqualified for that, but how can we match our resume?
Yeah, so in that case, then, and I know Payman, I'm sure will send the slides to you afterwards, but in that case, then you would create a resume where you would not put the dates on the resume, but instead you would have bullets and you would talk about all of your experiences. And so it wouldn't be from the year 2000 until the 2015. You would take that part out, and you would only put, your name, your position, paragraph, and then you would talk about all of the experiences that you have, and you would delete the dates.
Right. Only the not only the date, because in the highlights usually we are saying like over 10 years experience, for example. So we should delete that part as well, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Of course.
داوود بذار زنگ میزنم. بذار زنگ میزنم.
دوستان من خواهش میکنم لطف کنید میکروفونتون رو میوت کنید. این بار آخری تذکر میدم و بار بعد اگر میکروفونتون میوت نباشه متاسفانه من مجبور میشم شما رو از جلسه بیرون بندازم. من عذرخواهی میکنم قبلش، ولی خب بار سومی که تذکر میدم. لطف کنید میکروفونتون رو میوت کنید. از دوستان next please, next question please.
I have another question, just forgot. Can I ask?
Sure, go ahead, because we don't have another question yet, so sure.
Yeah. Just you mentioned because these days, because of COVID, we have to have networking. So networking is kind of is different, like we had in the past, like face-to-face in networking. How is possible? Like, how can we find the groups? Like you mentioned before, like Facebook or Instagram. So how can we find like not only Persian, ones, but also related to our professionals? And I know some professionals are there, but because of this new networking is kind of new, how can we know that? Maybe Pars has some information, or you have, I'm sure you have some guideline for us.
Yeah, of course. So for example, are you active on LinkedIn?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, okay. So LinkedIn is the most important place to go. So if you go there and you start doing different searches, for example, depending on what your competency area is, like in my case, if I want to join the Los Angeles Recruitment Network, I actually have joined that. I go and type in Los Angeles Recruitment Network, and all these different networks show up. And then you can also see how many people are in those networks, and you start joining them. And then once you start joining them, then there's opportunities like the one we're having right now, where you can, be in sessions and be in webinars, and then slowly, you basically start getting to know people that you didn't know before.
I see.
There's also another one that's called Meetup. Meetup also has a lot of, they're smaller, but for example, there's mechanical engineers, Los Angeles. There's, computer engineers in California. There's so many different ones, but you have to target those as well. So, sign up for a few that you can stay on top of it. Otherwise you won't have time to do all of them all at the same time. Right.
Okay. And another thing that I want to ask, so because of this COVID that happened, so mainly these days interviews are online or in person sometimes. How it works these days?
Yeah, it's usually like this. So it's usually with Zoom right now for many companies that I've spoken with and I've asked. So they're mostly on Zoom. So it's similar to exactly what we're doing here right now. There would be, first the recruiter, maybe they have a phone call with you first.
Right.
Then based on that, if you pass, then they would do a second round interview with the hiring manager and the recruiter or someone else. Usually the panel interviews where there's multiple people are for more senior roles, where you might get 3 or 4 people in that interview panel asking you questions. There could also be situations where they ask you to prepare something. As an example, for example, what do you plan on doing in the first 90 days if you get this job? What do you plan on doing in the first 6 months? And they might ask you to do a presentation depending on what the role is and what the accountability is. But the higher the role, then the more rounds of interviews and more people involved in decision making.
Right. And sometimes my last question, sorry. So sometimes the resumes are reading based on the computers and the machines, not the robots, as you mentioned. So if you have some titles like PE or EIT as an engineer, so is it okay to put our title because of robots are able to recognize those, or just they said, okay, this is nothing, how can we?
No, definitely. Whatever you have as far as extra certifications, and definitely put them there for sure.
Okay, thank you very much, Mariam. I appreciate it.
Of course. Who would like to go next? I think we have Sima.
Hi, Mariam. I have a question about the experience. My experience in the new field is 6 months, but most of the job for this for my field need 3 years. And I want to know, and now I'm working as a volunteer for a company, but for non-profit company. But I want to know, for example, write in my resume, I have a 1 year's experience, and is it possible to apply for that job for 3 years or more,
or not? Okay, so the volunteer job that you have, is it within, is that the 6 months, or is that in addition to the 6 months you have from before?
No, as a 1 month, it is not very.
Oh, you just started. Okay.
Yes,
So definitely
I have a 10 years experience in my in Iran, but when I moved to United States, I have to change my field. Not completely, my field was art, but now when I to the United States, I changed my field to UX UI. My degree is good for this, but I don't have enough experience for this.
Relevant experience.
Yes,
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So you should definitely just reconsider it and maybe try and see what happens. But I would definitely also include the 10 years experience that you have, even though it's not completely relevant. You should definitely include that, because if you only put 6 months, then the recruiter is going to think that you're right out of college and you're, just coming out of college and you have a couple of months of experience, but it's more than that. So definitely include that. But if there's any transferable experience also when you were in Iran that you have, then put that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And I'm more than happy to talk to you offline. More than happy to do that.
Thank you so much.
Okay. I think we had one more raised hand. Anybody else?
Can I go?
Yes, sure.
Hello. Thank you for all your information, first of all. I have a question okay, consider a student who is still studying and has definitely no other work experience at all. What kind of resume should that look like? What should I put in then as a job experience or whatever?
For sure, for sure. So when I was working in Shell Oil Company in Iran and also in Europe, my big responsibility was actually to hire graduates. So first of all, I have a question for you. What year are you in your education?
It's been a year if you're going based on the calendar, but I've took all the summer and winter courses, so I'm all the way done with my I get C requirements.
So are you junior now, or?
I'm not sure what is the basis for that, but going off calendar, it's been 1 year.
1 year that you're in college, correct?
But I've took more classes than the regular semesters.
Yeah. So what's very important for you is that through your college, they always have career offices. And even if it's a community college, if it's UCLA, USC, or Santa Monica College, or all the ones in between, there's always career offices. And all the companies in the Los Angeles area have relationships with the career offices at the universities or colleges. So what you need to do is to make sure, and I've told many people this, and it has always proven to be successful, Arash, and that is that every summer, you need to make sure that you do one internship. So when you get out of college in 3 years from now, we need to make sure that you've had one internship every summer. And so that has to happen basically from right now. So right now, you should really, even instead of taking additional classes to maybe finish earlier, your big priority needs to be to get a summer job. Now, the summer jobs that you're going to get might not always be relevant to the degree and what you want to do in the future, but they're still going to be very, very relevant when you share your resume with potential employers. And I can talk to you about in detail offline if you like about that.
Sure, I would love to.
Yeah, so we'll organize that with Payman.
Sure, one more question. Okay, one second. So, basically, my teacher asked me if I want to be a tutor. Just asking you, is that any good on a resume to be like a tutor?
Very much so. Very much
Okay.
so.
So I'm gonna take that. I've done the first round of interview, and the second one is coming up on May 21st, I guess. So
Oh,
you're
fantastic. Yeah,
recommending
tutoring
to
is
do
great.
it. Okay. Okay.
Emma Khan, there's a couple of requests for some one-on-one, which I'm more than happy to organize with you. So if our members are interested, if they let you know, and then me and you can coordinate a half-hour session with the folks who are interested. I'll ask them to send me their resume in advance, and then we can have a conversation.
Excuse me.
Hi.
Hi, I have a question. Can we have your email address to reach you out and send our resume?
Yes, Mr. Payman has that information. I will send it to him again, my personal one. And then maybe he can help coordinate that. Yes, that's not a problem at all. I'm here to help anybody I can.
Thank you so much.
For me, my biggest accomplishment is when I help someone just maybe a little bit, 1%, maybe I help you, and then you hopefully land the jobs that you're after, and you call me and you say that you've landed it. That for me is worth a lot, especially that you're all from our home country. So anything I can do, I'm here to do it. I've done it for so many years, and I've helped many, many people get through many, many doors. So I really hope that I can do the same for you to get you to where you deserve to be.
Thank you so much for your support and your help.
You can also add me on LinkedIn as well, and that's an easy way to reach out to me
Oh,
too.
that's good. Thank you so much.
Sorry, one more quick question. So if I want to apply for a university after community college, do they actually require a resume or just the grades?
Depends. I remember when my daughter also actually studied at USC. She actually came through Santa Monica College. She was there for 1 year and then transferred. So I don't remember her having to put together a resume, but I do remember her having to put together a document that had, it was like a position statement, you know, the reasons why behind why she wanted to attend USC. And, you know, that was very important for her to put it together and put it together well, because universities really look at that to understand why is it that you want to join their institution. And in that, and in the cover letters that you all are going to write as well, you really need to think about what value are you going to bring to the table if these companies or these universities decide to hire you.
All right, thank you.
Any more question?
I think we have one from Shahram, maybe.
I'm here. Hi,
Hi.
this is Mariam. Could you please tell me, my major was, cloud, like.
Is what law?
Yeah, cloud, IT cloud.
Outik,
And how can I get a job with it? Because this semester, I get my associate. So I was wondering, how can I get a job? I mean, what can I do? What should I do?
So I think that's kind of a more detailed conversation. Maybe I can take a look at your resume offline. And then what I will do is see how I can match it I'll do a search for you and see how I can match your competencies to roles that might be available. And then we can have a conversation to hopefully get you what you need. But with all of you, it will take effort and it will take time, but it's definitely doable as long as you guys also flex a little bit and, you know, go in, get the experience that you need, and maybe you move around a little bit later. So I'm more than happy to meet with you offline.
Oh, thank you very much. Could you please tell me how can I keep in touch with you with link or email address or whatever?
Yeah, Payman Khan's going to send everything to you guys. He'll send you the link to my profile on LinkedIn, and then we'll organize through LinkedIn to have our sessions.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry to bother again. As a follow-up on his question, do you think a standalone certifications help? Because like my major is kind of related. And
Definitely.
I was wondering, I have
Definitely.
one. Okay, awesome.
Definitely. So let me ask then the question to you all. Was this session useful for you?
Absolutely.
Very much, very much. Thank you.
Good,
Great.
good.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Of course, of course. And as you prepare for interviews, again, whatever I can give you, even if it's a mock interview where we can, put some questions together and get you prepared. If the audience is small, like it is right now here on the call, then I can definitely accommodate. So let's take it further. Let's get to a position where maybe when we offer this session again in a couple of months to other members, then you've landed jobs and then you can come into the conversations and present with me so that they see that when they put the effort in the things that I'm advising you to do, that it's going to hopefully pay back. All right, everyone. Well, before we hang up, here is, and then I'll pass to Payman if there's any closing remarks, but here's my LinkedIn profile. So make sure to copy and paste that, send me an invite and I'll accept, and we will take it from there. Payman Khan, over back to you. I think we don't have any more questions.
Okay, thank you so much. I just type your LinkedIn profile in the chat session so everybody can use that. And any other question?
Is this the best way to get in touch, or like email?
Yeah, I check that a couple of times a day.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you again, Mariam John, and have a great night for everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.